Have you ever watched a woman walk into a room and felt the air shift? Not because she announced herself or demanded attention, but because something in her presence made everyone lean forward without knowing why. She is not necessarily young or flawless by magazine standards, yet there is a force field around her, a gravitational pull that makes people want to orbit closer, to understand what she knows that they do not. Carl Jung spent his life mapping the invisible architecture of human magnetism, and what he discovered challenges everything you have been told about attraction. He understood that the women who captivate others effortlessly are not performing beauty or perfection. They are embodying a specific psychological maturity, a series of internal developments that radiate outward as undeniable presence. These are not superficial tricks or manipulation tactics. They are the natural byproducts of a woman who has done the deep work of integrating her psyche, who has brought unconscious patterns into conscious awareness, who has reconciled the warring parts of herself into a unified whole. Jung identified 6 psychological territories that, when developed, create what he called the individuated woman, someone who has become fully herself rather than a collection of social expectations and unconscious reactions. Each territory corresponds to a specific way of being that most women have never been taught to cultivate, and yet these are the exact qualities that generate irresistible attraction. Not attraction based on dependency or game playing, but attraction rooted in genuine psychological power. The kind that does not fade with age because it has nothing to do with youth. The kind that deepens over time because it is built on self-knowledge rather than self-denial. What are these 6 psychological developments? And how does a mature woman cultivate them in ways that transform how others experience her presence? The first territory Jung understood as essential to feminine magnetism is what he called the integrated persona, the conscious relationship between your inner self and outer presentation. Most women construct their social face unconsciously, assembling an acceptable version of themselves based on what they believe others want to see. This creates a fracture, a visible tension between who you are and who you are pretending to be, and that tension repels genuine attraction. The mature woman has done different work. She has examined her persona consciously, kept what feels authentic, and discarded what was built purely for approval. Her confidence is not an act. It is the natural result of alignment between inner reality and outer expression. When you enter a space projecting a persona that matches your actual essence, people sense the coherence. There is no dissonance, no hidden agenda, no performance anxiety bleeding through your smile. This is what Jung meant by psychological integrity, and it registers in others as magnetism before a single word is spoken. Your body language changes when you are not maintaining a false front. Your spine lengthens naturally because you are not carrying the weight of pretense. Your eye contact becomes steady because you are not scanning for approval or threat. Your voice drops into its natural register because you are not performing femininity. You are embodying your particular version of it. This is not about walking with your shoulders back and faking confidence. This is about the somatic shift that occurs when you stop lying to yourself about who you are. The integrated persona radiates what Jung called authentic presence, and it operates like a beacon for those capable of recognizing genuine substance beneath social polish. If you are finding value in this psychological framework, this would be an excellent moment to signal that to the algorithm by subscribing. Tap the bell icon so you are notified when the next exploration of Jungian feminine psychology arrives. Your engagement helps this content reach others seeking depth rather than superficial relationship advice. Now we return to the second psychological territory that creates irresistible attraction. The second territory is emotional sovereignty, Jung's term for a woman who has separated her sense of worth from external validation. The immature psyche operates in constant need of reassurance, checking obsessively whether others approve, whether a partner still desires her, whether she measures up to invisible standards. This neediness creates an energetic vacuum that repels rather than attracts. The mature woman has completed what Jung called the withdrawal of projections. She no longer projects her sense of completeness onto romantic partners, expecting them to fill voids only she can address. She has done the internal work of becoming whole on her own, which paradoxically makes her far more attractive to secure individuals. When you stop clinging energetically to others, when you stop radiating desperate need for validation, You create space for genuine desire to emerge. Jung understood that humans are drawn to what they perceive as complete and self-sufficient, not to what appears broken and grasping. A woman with emotional sovereignty does not manipulate through withdrawal or play games with availability. She simply has a life that exists independently of any relationship, and that independence reads as confidence rather than strategy. Her energy is not available on demand because she is genuinely occupied with pursuits that matter to her. This is not a tactic. This is the natural result of individuation, the process of becoming psychologically whole. When a woman has integrated her shadow, developed her own internal masculine energy, and stopped seeking external saviors, her presence shifts fundamentally. She stops asking permission to exist fully. She stops shrinking to make others comfortable. She stops performing availability to prove her worth. And in that shift, she becomes exponentially more magnetic because she is finally real. The third territory Jung identified is what he termed the embodied archetype, the conscious cultivation of your unique expression rather than imitation of mass trends. Most women approach their appearance as if following instructions, copying what advertisements and social media declare attractive. This creates a generic quality, a sense that you are interchangeable with thousands of others pursuing the same aesthetic. The psychologically mature woman understands that true magnetism comes from specificity, from developing a visual presentation that reflects her internal essence rather than external pressures. Jung believed that every woman carries within her a particular archetypal energy, whether the sage, the sovereign, the mystic, the warrior, or countless other configurations. When your external presentation aligns with your internal archetype, you create visual coherence that others experience as charisma. This is not about fashion rules or expensive clothing. This is about understanding which colors, textures, silhouettes, and styling choices reflect who you actually are beneath social conditioning. A woman who has identified her archetypal core can walk into any space wearing simple clothing and command attention because her presentation is congruent with her essence. There is no dissonance between her inner world and outer image. Her style becomes an extension of her psychology rather than a mask concealing it. Jung observed that humans are deeply drawn to authenticity, to the rare individual who has stopped performing and started embodying. When you dress in a way that honors your true nature rather than chasing trends, you signal psychological maturity. You communicate that you know yourself well enough to make sovereign choices about your presentation, and that self-knowledge reads as power. The fourth territory is the integration of what Jung called the animus, the inner masculine energy within every woman's psyche. This is not about adopting masculine behavior or competing with men. This is about developing your own capacity for directed will, logical discernment, and healthy boundaries. Many women remain psychologically immature by rejecting these qualities as unfeminine, leaving them undeveloped and unconscious. The result is a woman who cannot say no clearly, who cannot pursue her goals with focus, who cannot engage her intellect without apologizing for it. This internal weakness manifests externally as either excessive passivity or aggressive overcompensation, both of which repel mature attraction. The woman who has integrated her animus possesses what Jung called balanced feminine energy. She can be receptive without being passive. She can be nurturing without being self-sacrificing. She can be emotionally open without being unstable. She has claimed her right to assert herself, to think clearly, to set boundaries, to pursue ambitions, all while maintaining her feminine essence. This internal balance creates an external magnetism that is difficult to articulate, but impossible to ignore. Men sense when a woman has developed her inner masculine, because she relates to them as an equal, rather than seeking them to provide what she lacks. She does not need to be rescued, completed, or directed. She brings her own psychological wholeness to the interaction, which creates the conditions for genuine partnership rather than codependent enmeshment. Jung understood that the most compelling women are those who have married themselves internally, uniting their feminine and masculine energies into integrated wholeness. This internal marriage radiates outward as an almost mythic quality, the sense that this woman has become complete on her own terms. The fifth territory Jung explored was the mystery of conscious communication, the understanding that attraction is generated not by what you say, but by the psychological depth from which you speak. Most women approach conversation as information exchange, filling silences with facts about themselves or asking predictable questions. This creates transactional interaction rather than genuine connection. The mature woman understands that conversation is primarily energetic, that the quality of your presence matters far more than the content of your words. Jung observed that humans are magnetically drawn to individuals who create space for depth, who are comfortable with silence, who ask questions that reveal rather than interrogate. A woman who has done her psychological work brings a different quality to interaction. She listens from a place of genuine curiosity, rather than waiting for her turn to speak. She responds from her center, rather than from anxiety about how she is being perceived. She is comfortable with pauses, because she is comfortable with herself. This creates what Jung called the field of presence, an energetic container in which others feel safe to reveal themselves authentically. The ability to hold space for another person without agenda, to be fully present without performance, to communicate from psychological depth rather than social script. This is what generates lasting attraction. It signals that you are not performing connection but genuinely capable of it. And in a world of superficial interaction, that capacity is rare enough to be magnetic. We have explored 5 of the 6 psychological territories Jung identified as essential to mature feminine magnetism. The foundation has been established through understanding persona integration, emotional sovereignty, archetypal embodiment, animus development, and conscious communication. What remains is the territory Jung considered most powerful, the one quality that synthesizes all others into irresistible presence. And that revelation awaits in the next dimension of this exploration. The 6th and final territory Jung identified as the cornerstone of mature feminine magnetism is what he called achieved individuation, the completion of psychological wholeness that renders a woman entirely self-sufficient. This is not independence in the shallow sense of refusing help or rejecting connection. This is the deep psychological reality of a woman who has integrated her shadow, developed her animus, withdrawn her projections, and become genuinely complete as an individual. Jung believed this was the rarest and most powerful form of human development, because it requires facing everything about yourself you have spent a lifetime avoiding. The individuated woman has descended into her own darkness and emerged not destroyed, but strengthened. She has acknowledged her capacity for cruelty, selfishness, jealousy, rage, and instead of being horrified by these qualities, she has integrated them consciously. This integration creates psychological density, a substantiality of presence that others experience as gravitational pull. You cannot fake individuation. You cannot perform wholeness. Either you have done the work of becoming psychologically complete, or you have not, and the difference is immediately recognizable to anyone operating at a similar level of development. The individuated woman does not need a relationship to feel whole because she is already whole. She does not need external validation because she has developed internal validation through genuine self-knowledge. She does not need to compete with other women because she understands her value is not comparative but intrinsic. This freedom from need creates the ultimate form of magnetism because it signals that you are psychologically mature enough for genuine partnership, rather than codependent merger. Jung understood that most relationships fail because they involve 2 incomplete people attempting to use each other as missing pieces. The individuated woman refuses this dynamic entirely. She brings her wholeness to connection and seeks another whole person to share existence with, not to complete her existence. This fundamentally different approach to relationship creates different outcomes. When you stop seeking external completion, you attract people who are also psychologically mature. When you stop radiating need, you attract those capable of genuine reciprocity. When you embody wholeness, you magnetize others who recognize and value that rare quality. The individuated woman lives from her center rather than from her wounds. Her decisions arise from self-knowledge rather than fear or compensation. Her presence is stable because it is not dependent on external circumstances remaining favorable. She has internalized her own authority, which Jung called the self, the organizing principle of the psyche that transcends ego identification. This connection to self rather than ego creates a quality of presence that others experience as almost supernatural, a groundedness and clarity that seems to emanate from deeper sources than ordinary personality. The path to individuation, according to Jung, requires confronting what he called the personal and collective shadow. The personal shadow contains everything about yourself you have rejected as unacceptable. For women, this often includes ambition, aggression, sexuality, selfishness, and the capacity for ruthless boundary setting. The collective shadow contains the archetypal material that your culture has deemed inappropriate for your gender. The mature woman has excavated both territories, bringing unconscious material into conscious awareness and integrating it without judgment. This is brutal work. It requires admitting that you are capable of everything you judge harshly in others. It requires acknowledging that the persona you have constructed to be lovable is a mask concealing far more complex psychological reality. It requires sitting with profound discomfort as you recognize patterns you have repeated unconsciously for decades. But the reward for this work is liberation. When you integrate your shadow, you stop being controlled by it. When you acknowledge your full humanity, you stop fragmenting yourself to maintain an acceptable image. When you become whole, you stop seeking completion outside yourself. And that wholeness radiates as the most powerful form of attraction because it signals that you have completed the hero's journey of becoming fully yourself. Jung observed that the individuated woman moves through the world differently than those still fragmented by unconscious material. She does not react from wounds because she has healed them. She does not project her unresolved material onto others because she has resolved it. She does not seek external saviors because she has become her own internal authority. This creates a quality of presence that is simultaneously peaceful and powerful. She is not trying to prove anything, defend anything, or convince anyone of her worth. She simply exists from her center. And that centered existence is magnetic precisely because it is so rare. In a world of fragmented people performing wholeness, the genuinely integrated woman stands out like a beacon. Others sense her stability, her lack of hidden agenda, her capacity for genuine intimacy without enmeshment, and those capable of recognizing these qualities are drawn to her with intensity that has nothing to do with physical appearance and everything to do with psychological substance. Practical application of individuation is not found in behavior modification but in depth work. You cannot become individuated by following a list of actions. You become individuated by examining your unconscious motivations, withdrawing your projections, integrating your shadow, and developing your unlived potential. This requires what Jung called active imagination, the practice of dialoguing with the unconscious through dreams, creative expression, and honest self-reflection. It requires finding competent guidance, whether through analysis, mentorship, or serious engagement with depth psychology. It requires years of commitment to truth-telling, first to yourself, and then to others. The individuated woman is not created through weekend workshops or superficial self-help. She is forged through sustained engagement with her own psychological depths, through willingness to face everything she has avoided, through courage to become fully herself rather than remaining a partial person constructed for approval. This journey is not comfortable, but it is the only path to genuine magnetism rooted in substance rather than performance. Jung understood that attraction operates on multiple levels simultaneously. Physical attraction is real but temporary. Personality attraction is stronger but still surface level. Psychological attraction, the magnetism generated by a truly individuated human, operates at archetypal depths that transcend ordinary relationship dynamics. When you encounter someone who has completed the work of becoming whole, you recognize something in them that speaks to the deepest part of yourself. This recognition creates attraction that has nothing to do with conventional factors and everything to do with resonance at the level of the self. The individuated woman generates this quality of attraction, not through effort but through being. Her presence alone communicates psychological maturity, integration, and the rare capacity for genuine intimacy without loss of self. And for those capable of recognizing these qualities, she becomes utterly irresistible, not because she is trying to be, but because she has become fully herself. The synthesis of all 6 territories creates what Jung termed the individuated feminine, a woman who has integrated her persona, achieved emotional sovereignty, embodied her unique archetype, developed her animus, mastered conscious communication, and completed the work of psychological wholeness. This is not a destination, but an ongoing process, a commitment to continuous development and deepening self-knowledge. The woman who walks this path discovers that attraction ceases to be something she chases or manufactures. It becomes something she generates naturally through the simple act of being entirely herself, without apology or disguise. Her presence speaks before her words. Her energy communicates before her actions. Her wholeness magnetizes, because it is so profoundly rare in a world of fragmented people performing connection they cannot genuinely sustain. This is the ultimate promise of Jungian psychology, applied to feminine development. Not strategies for manipulation, but pathways to genuine power rooted in self-knowledge and integration. The woman who completes this work does not become irresistible to everyone. She becomes irresistible to those operating at her level of psychological maturity, which is precisely the kind of attraction worth cultivating.